Start the recording now.
All right. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, wherever you are. Yeah, we're really excited to have everyone here for the second round of Community Weavers. And for those of you that weren't here last time, the intention of this space is really to explore like what actually is community. And we take, a wide definition, like we have people who have led eco villages or communities like that, but really community is anytime there's like more than one person in a room. And so we're looking at like how can we do it better, and how can we kind of remove some of our romanticized vision of it to work with the reality of it, which is also really beautiful, and get down to these kind of deeper levels of these questions. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Jonathan?
Yeah, maybe just to share my personal excitement about this. Last month we had Edward Seidelman here, our dear friend who has been exploring communities in all kinds of ways in so many different aspects and facets. And we've been talking a lot about the idea of our local neighborhoods being communities, even if we're not really living in a formal co-living arrangement. And yeah, as you were sharing, Alexandra, like as soon as a few people come together, there is the potential for true community. And I've seen many communities in my life working for the Global Eco Village for 3 years and traveling and visiting many eco villages and intentional communities and other places. And I still have that deep intuition that community will play an essential role in the next form of society that we'll be building. And there's also a big question mark and a lot of romanticization and people joining communities for all the wrong reasons and filling the holes within them, and then just magnifying the problems that they had in their life before that. And so we're on this inquiry and we have more questions than answers on how can we actually come together in authentic community that is based on fullness and abundance rather than the scarcity and the need that needs to be filled. So yeah, how can we actually co-create something that is new and that is making a difference in the world? And I think yeah, for that we have a wonderful guest here with us today, with Danny Bell. I'm so excited to dive deeper with you because just looking at your biography, and we haven't had a lot of personal interactions the few times that we've met, but I always had the sense of like, oh wow, there's a lot beneath the surface that you're bringing. So I'm super excited about the conversation that we're hosting today. And
Yeah.
yeah, in the spirit of these community explorations, we also want to open it up to your questions and to your insights and have this as a space of co-learning, co-sharing, and really supporting each other in that process of moving towards community, whatever that means in where we are at in our lives at the moment.
Yeah.
Great.
So how it's going to work is I'll tell you a little bit about Danabelle, and then we'll start kind of having a conversation with her about some of these themes. And you guys feel free to jump into that conversation, jump in with questions, jump in with your own experiences, because really none of us are experts. We're all just in this together. And then at the end, there'll be space for you to surface questions or curiosities that you've had on your mind that you'd like the group to kind of workshop together as well. And yeah, Danielle is an amazing human. I met her last year up at Rebuild. We did a regenerative gathering around village building, and she showed up and started talking about like DAOs and tokenomics. And usually when somebody talks about that, I start tuning out a little bit because I'm like, oh, technology, like it's a people problem. And Danabelle was like one of the only people that I've met that really like understood that and understood the linking of the people to the technology, and how the technology is a tool and the people have to be thinking about it and using it in the right way to really create impact. And she's also just like a badass community builder. She is down in Tinamaste, helping to build the Diamante Bridge Collective, as well as working on the Diamante Luz land project. She does amazing things at Burning Man and goes all over the place doing stuff with, Ethereum DAOs, trying to really move the way that we own land, the way that we think about economies to a whole new level. So yeah, excited to have you here, Danielle. Maybe
Well, thank you.
or sorry.
That's okay. You're so kind. Thank you.
So maybe we could just start with, like I gave a little description of how I interpret who you are, but like, how do you interpret who you are?
Well, I'll start by saying I feel very seen. Thank you, Alex, for seeing the things that uh, there's a common thread in community building, and it's a thread that bridges what we're doing on the ground with tools that we need to improve how we coordinate decisions around use of resources, how we coordinate uh, developing solutions to these challenges that have really plagued community for generations. Um, this is a movement that is decades old. Since the 60s, folks have been looking at how to go back to the land, if you will. So I've been working on that for a couple decades. Um, and I started a community in Washington State, and it was beautiful and very vibrant, and it brought a lot of people together. And also, it very clearly surfaced a lot of the issues and challenges that face the ability humans have to come together and view things in a holistic perspective and make decisions around what are we going to do together, right? Because we each have our individual purpose and we can align ourselves and our life force into something. But in reality, what we're here to do that for is collective energy. What needs to be done in the world now requires us to coordinate ourselves and coordinate our life force better. So you spoke to the main projects that I'm doing now. When I arrived here into the Valley, that was after 3 years of being in Costa Rica, 3 years of working up in the mountain, building relationships with the communities there, living in neighbors' rooms and houses and getting to know the people there, and then going down to the ocean, to the Osa, and just feeling what this land has for us, because we're ultimately here to be vessels and channels for what this vision the world has for itself. And as we get to know the place and the people where we are, this is how we'll be able to be more integrated in our actions together. So the Valley said here, and I came down here, and there's many different permaculture projects and retreat centers in various stages of development. And they represent a cross section of what's happening in Costa Rica and across Central and South America and around the world, really. But each place has its own flavor. And this place is calling people together to recognize what we've done to the planet, how we've been extracting from it, and then to start looking underneath that at what are the ways that we've been extracting from the earth, and how do we transform those so that they're more regenerative and we're giving back. And so I chose to work with Diamante Luz here because it's a degraded cattle field. And it's a group of people who are willing to be here simply living and working with the neighbors to figure out how can we restore this piece of land as a model for community. So I'll stop there. Those are sort of my broad strokes, but before my 20 years working just in community and activism, I was actually a project manager in IT, implementing technology solutions for groups of people. So I see how we can take those strategies and apply them to natural information systems to help us communicate and coordinate better together.
Wow, beautiful. I'll take a moment to let that sink in because there was so much in there. And there are many directions that I could go deeper and would want to go deeper with, but what calls me most is how you're describing the environment and the local community that you're immersed in right now, and how it's sort of a microcosm that brings together all different aspects of society that we know from the more macro perspective, and that in this microcosm things show up that are innovative and maybe new, but also things that we know from the traditional world are surfacing. And I'd be curious to dive more into the potential of how can we actually create new patterns. Even on a personal level, I know how difficult it is to create new personal patterns of behavior, but even more if we're coming together as groups, how can we identify the patterns that are detrimental and working against life, and how can we shift those and work more in alignment with life. And I'd be curious to hear more from you of what you observe in your local community, of what's the potential to actually have an impact, to create also on a micro level these innovations of creating new patterns, and how can we then potentially even scale that. But let's start with the first part of, you know, these patterns that show up in the microcosm that we are so familiar with.
Yeah, you're touching on why, to me, it is really important that we start from this permaculture level, that we start with principle number one, observe and interact. We show up into these places with a very clear vision of what it is we believe we're here to do, what we're here to create. And then we look for the place that we can create this vision that we're carrying with us into that place. And what I would suggest is it's imperative that we slow down and learn the terrain and learn the landscape of where it is that we're choosing to inhabit or potentially occupy, which isn't always what we actually want to do. The tendency we have is to bring all of our lessons and our experience that we gained in our previous lives and show up in a place with these wonderful things that worked for us where we were. And we want to give them as our gift, right? To the place that we're landing, to the people. They don't know this yet. I learned this. I want to share this with you. Until we take the time to understand what's actually happening in that ecosystem that we're landing into. My work with the indigenous grandmothers, they would repeat to me over and over, listen, learn, and lend a hand. And they're in that order. You know, we show up wanting to lend our hands, wanting to get our hands on something and build something and do something. But the greatest thing we can do first is arrive and listen. Listen and take the time to interact with what is already present and learn from that, because we see our vision from the lens of where we're coming from. But the vision itself requires that we illuminate different sides of it. And what will always happen in this case is we are the ones who have our own shadows, our own things that we've been hiding away from ourselves, that we thought, you know we don't really want that in our life, but we haven't fully illuminated the lesson that we get from those things that we're hiding from ourselves. So the culture building process is the very first thing that I would accentuate in this process as where to begin, is to recognize that when we are bringing people together from different places with different experiences and learnings, we sort of need to deconstruct ourself and our own cultural programming and learn to have an appreciation for what exists in the place and clear our own channels, become a clear mirror in a group of people, so that we have the confidence to see what we don't want to see in another being, and then recognize that they're giving us a gift in that, because each of us that shows up is here to show the others something we need to see and overcome, and that's our blind spots. And that takes time. It takes learning, discovering, connecting with each other, and building a new cultural framework, a new context to create from within. And it really means breaking down ourselves and doing that work to recognize that what shows up in that one person who's very difficult in the community is the gift from the universe. That person is bringing that for us to see and to work through.
Yeah, I think that that's super important. And I think, leaning into that discomfort is the work, and I think that's where a lot of times stuff starts breaking down, is that it's hard, but it is the thing that brings us forward. And when we were talking a little bit before, we were talking about the idea of, like, even those of us that really want to do this work, that really want to look at ourselves, like, we have these embedded patterns of how we view the world, that a lot of it's been handed to us from society. Many of us come from capitalistic systems that place a certain set of values on a certain set of things. And, I remember when I first came to Costa Rica, I coined the phrase gentrifying the jungle. And you know, it's like whether we want to look at it or not, like we've kind of transplanted this way of being that I don't think any of us want to be, right? I also feel like we're trapped in like a system that is designed to perpetuate this. But how have you thought about this, worked with this? Like, what is your perspective on shifting these systems that come from within us and also from around us?
So that's a big word, gentrification. And it's a word that I've noticed a lot of folks aren't actually even familiar with, depending where their background is. So I just want to kind of unpack that word just a little bit first, because gentrification is essentially when people who have more power, more privilege, and more access to resources are therefore empowered with the access and the ability to come into a place where values are low, where, and by values are low, what I mean is nature itself, and what she produces for us, the abundance of the earth, has not been commoditized to such a great extent yet. The very simple and obvious example here in Costa Rica is when you drive around, how many real estate signs do you see? And how many of them say for sale instead of se vende? It's pretty significant. It's pretty evident that folks are looking to sell their land to make money because they need that money. And foreigners are the folks coming in who have that money and can buy it. The slippery slope there is the person who comes in and makes that purchase. They're generally not investing in that local community and the values and the activities of the community itself. They're investing in the land itself because our system has taught us to increase the value of land and then sell it again and make your money off of the sale of that land. We're perpetuating something very dangerous through this process. And it started long ago with colonization, and it continues to this day. But now colonization has taken on this subtler nuance of gentrification, where we believe we're making something better, and we believe we're making it better because we're increasing the value. The way we've been increasing that value, though, is an extractive method. And by flipping this around and looking at, like I'll be the first one to say it right now. I want everybody who owns land right now to be the last landowner ever. Any land that an individual is currently holding title to can very easily be placed into trust and secured for the future. And the value gets shifted to the people who are actually doing the work to produce things. Generally, just like that first principle of permaculture, the first place people look to is food. Someone's got quite a noise on their microphone, and I'm having to work pretty hard.
I just muted it. You're good.
Great, thank you. Starting from our food is what I'm going to say is the easiest and first and best place to look at, and to look at how are we growing our food or purchasing our food in a way that's honoring the hands that are working that land and working to restore it, and the people in the local community that are doing the work to craft a product and bring it to you to nourish yourself. And then what are the materials that are being used to store that and ship it? Gentrification of the land then goes to what are all the resources that we're using to improve upon it and build with it. And often those resources become consumables and turned into waste. So there's an extraction that happens when we come in, and then there's actually a generation of waste product and pollution that happens as a result of that. So being very, very careful to make sure we're not showing up in a community and saying, oh, I now have land, I get to produce something and sell it in this community to make a living for myself. If we haven't learned the neighborhood and learned who already produces those things, who's already providing these different services, we need to understand what already exists in this community before we show up and try to make a business and earn our own living. out of that community. So I may have gone off a little bit off track there, but essentially the distillation is in order to understand how we can prevent recolonization from happening here, is to understand what gentrification is, and to understand that when we have power and privilege and we come in and use that to purchase something, we're actually perpetuating oppression and pushing those who are already living close to that land and already there out of their own homes. We may not be driving them on a march of tears, but we're absolutely making it so they can no longer afford to live in the place that their family has lived for generations.
Wow. Yeah. Super powerful. And it's interesting because like I've reflected on this in my own life, and you know, like I'd love to be like, yeah, I totally have always like been the most altruistic and, you know, giving back everything. But what I run up against inside of myself, and I think this is what is driving this system, is like this sense of fear about my own personal safety. You know what I mean? Like if I don't own land, which has then become a future investment that I could sell if anything happens, you know, then what will happen to me? And I know that that is a story, right? So I'd love to, but I think that is a lot of this baseline fear around like a really base need is what kind of perpetuates this. So for you in your journey, or other people that you've seen that have really like broken out of that paradigm, what has unlocked that for you?
I really believe that technology is the key that's unlocking these solutions for us right now. The ability to govern ourselves, to share a vote, to be able to do our due diligence and follow an advice process and make sure that we're gathering all of the information from the different impacted parties first, and to compile that data in a way that allows everyone who's affected to actually have a say, creating these forums and these spaces that people can come together and discuss them, even if it gets heated, sometimes necessarily making sure that we create that container where your true truth that you are hiding and burying down inside of yourself is allowed to come forth, so we can all look at it and honor it and address it together. It's the most beautiful and important piece. But technology is really what we're going to have to find a way to use to share these lessons. There's new people coming and buying land all the time. How can we very easily point them to a list of consultants, access to the wisdom, the information to be able to do our own research? You know, that's a mantra we hear in regenerative finance. Do your own research, DYOR, you'll see that. Doing your own research when you land into a new place is hard, right? Who do you talk to? Who do you trust? Who are the people that are raising their hand and saying, me, I have the answer for you? They're usually probably not the person who has the answer. I'll give you a tip. So how do we find the individuals that are actually doing good work, and that we can take a look at that, be able to harvest and gather the information to share with new people that are arriving? And I'll carry that one more level and back to the land ownership and trust aspect of things. And here in Costa Rica, your residency, your ability to be in this country is tied in many cases to land that you own. We've actually developed a governance system that treats the land as the mechanism that allows a person to have their rights. So what I would suggest is building what we're doing now from the ground up, creating these communities and these spaces where people can acquire the skills and demonstrate their responsibilities that then give them those rights to inhabit and know that they have a place to live for the rest of their life. They have a place to garden. They have a community around them. You know, we're building out the 6 stages of stewardship, and I looked at them as we finished them and I said, well, what's the 7th stage of stewardship? And that to me is the rocking chair stage, right? Once we've developed our skills, fulfilled the responsibilities, demonstrated that we can be a good caretaker and a good steward of the abundance that we have on this planet, Where do we get to put our rocking chair? I know that we're cared for. That's the goal to me. And in order to get there, it shouldn't be, and this is really the problem we've seen over these last few waves of people coming into community, is those who have the skills, we work, we farm, we create beauty, we build beautiful natural structures. And then the people who actually held the title to the land have a change in their own circumstances, and they get to sell that out from under you. And the value that you put into that, the contributions that you created in this world, feels like they just get thrown into the trash. So creating these new methods of people being able to demonstrate that they are willing to learn, are willing to work through and become a good steward of themselves, our own body and our planet and our community. This is what's going to move us forward.
Beautiful. Wow. I want to take your invitation to actually slow down and give us a moment, or at least for myself, to take a moment to acknowledge that there was a lot happening intellectually, but also a lot that touched me emotionally quite deeply. And maybe I'm in a very sensitive place, but even just, bringing into awareness this topic of colonialization and the depth of the wound that we all carry within us. I can feel the sadness, the grief around that, and I can feel how deep that longing is to create new patterns on this planet. And at the same time, I feel also that increasing clarity of like, this is why we're here. This is why we're coming together, even just in this call, because I cannot do it alone. I cannot see our collective blind spot by myself, and even less can I actually have an impact in creating a new pattern. So I feel that I gain a new insight on, okay, maybe it's not even about, starting a new village and running forwards, but even just coming together and sitting with the discomfort of the sadness, of the pain, of the guilt, of the heaviness of colonialization, and seeing like, oh shit, as long as we're denying that, as long as we're trying to push that into the shadow, we're recreating it. We're denying it, and in the same way we're recreating it. And so just breathing into that and feeling like, okay, we don't only need community to celebrate and to grow food together, we also need community to digest the grief, to hold the pain, to hold the discomfort, to then from that place create new patterns. And to, a quote that comes to mind is from Otto Schama, who says, we're collectively creating symptoms that no one individually wants. And I think that's true on all levels, and to see how we're complicit in many of the things that are happening around us, and acknowledge that, and to truly open our hearts to that feels like the first step in this slowing down, and not only observe what's happening around us, but also to be slow and honest with what's happening within us around these topics.
Absolutely. In order to heal it, we must reveal it. And once we reveal it, we've got to feel it. The healing can only come after we feel it, and then make that conscious choice to let it go. As we look at our beautiful, beautiful conscious community, it's a worldwide phenomenon that is happening right now. Anywhere in the world I can go to, and I can open my heart, and I can feel the vibration and find the places where this is happening, where the people are doing this kind of work. And we paint it with words like spiritual bypassing, the shadow that's not really being confronted when we see and move and create this new vision with everything we have, including the stuff we haven't let go of yet. And the love and the light and the beauty that we are creating has to be in the face of what we are also dismantling.
Yeah, and I love how at the same time I feel your spirit so hopeful. It's not a despair that you're transmitting, but truly like there are ways to move forward, to move through that. And the way through, obviously, is in and out, and not around, but really feeling your optimism in that of like, we actually have a chance to rebuild this planet in a way that is more in alignment with who we truly are, that makes me at the same time also joyful, and to see like, yeah, there's a big shift happening. And I think some of the technologies that you've been speaking about are a reflection of that shift in consciousness. And every technology obviously is only as strong as the consciousness that utilizes them. But I can feel how we're touching a deep core point here, when also, Alex, you were speaking about your own need for safety and the fear of, oh, where's my place, where's my safety if I don't hold on to this individualistic property idea of this is mine, you know. But if we expand our awareness to, we are stewards for something that we're all sharing responsibility for, that's where I feel like, oh, there is a sense of purpose coming into it. There is a sense of a vision that goes beyond the individualistic separated self, but goes more into a sense of interbeing, of like, oh, we're in this together, and I'm leaning back and I'm held by everyone else because I'm holding everyone else, and we're holding each other together. And we need to develop that trust, that we can actually trust each other and that we're there for each other. And I think it comes through these moments that you described, where we're actually stepping into confrontation, where we're moving into the conflicts, where we feel like, oh shit, I'm saying things that are uncomfortable and people are still there. We're still held, we're still together in this. And so I think it's powerful to have both this inner process and the community building process, and then the technologies that can enable us, support us in moving through that together. And maybe before we open it up also to the group, I'm curious, because I know that you've been very active also in the Web3 world and these kind of things. What's the potential that you see of, once we've found things that work on a local level, how can we actually scale them using these technologies, and maybe also scale the trust?
Absolutely. So my background with Web3 technology began on the Ethereum platform, because I went to a conference and I was astounded to see that all of these projects, all of these tools are being built by people with really good hearts, who truly recognize that they have a gift that is needed in the world, and they just want to do a better thing. They just want to find, how can I do my part from sitting in a box in a skyscraper in a city to make the world a better place on the ground for the people who are actually suffering, or those who are working and not being valued. Everyone has a really important role to play. And what we're doing here in these beautiful little pockets of community on the ground is giving hope and optimism, and eventually faith, and the ability to create this together to people who can't actually see it, right? The majority of the people can't actually see it. But if we can give them a glimpse through the window, if we can create a pathway for anyone anywhere to be able to contribute to the co-creation, then that fulfills that longing you were speaking of. The belonging to the earth feels so right. I want to be able to say, I am a citizen of Earth. I am a planetary, I'm a spiritual being having a physical existence on this earth right now with all of you. And I want to be able to belong at that level, until I confront the fact that I have power that other people don't, and I need to use the power that I have to more justly distribute power. That's what I see Web3 is allowing us to do. It's allowing us to look at, how can we truly redistribute wealth? How can we truly reallocate resources in a more regenerative way that lifts up these local communities, and also provides the education that's necessary for someone out there in their box who wants to come be a part of this, to give them the individual personal tools that they need to show up, recognizing they need to confront themselves. And something that comes up in our healing circles quite frequently is that fear comforts, love confronts. So it's very easy to see someone suffering and comfort them and wish to make them feel better about all of that. But when we truly stand in the power of love, we have the ability to confront with love these things that are no longer welcome in the world we're creating in the future. And to thank them, to have so much gratitude that these are the things that got us here. and we don't need them anymore.
Wow, so much brave work. Like really leaning into the shadow and questioning the why of the way things have been done and imagining a different future. So yeah, I want to transition into, I know, Danielle, you had a couple questions or challenges that you wanted to share with the group. And then the group, you guys can answer those. You can also start contributing any questions you might have, and we can just move this more into an open conversation. So everyone try and decondition themselves to the rules of school. You don't need to raise your hand. You don't need to type things in the chat. Just let's talk as if we're all humans in a room together.
Great. Well, the word that we brought into this is gentrification. I would propose that that is the villain in the room, in the story that we're writing. That's the problem. And what can we do to counteract gentrification? What can we do as a larger collective to learn from the places where we can see the outcomes and the symptoms and apply those learnings into the communities that are just having this creep in on their borders? So seeking the solution to gentrification, how can we become part of, I might say community integration is the other side of gentrification, but how to implement that is the question. And on a parallel track, because that really comes down to what we value and how we value the contributions of others and the contributions of ourselves. And Alex, when we were having a previous conversation, you so beautifully mapped that to the other thing that everyone thinks about and looks at right now is how do we stop polluting our planet? How do we stop producing things that are actually not needed and become waste, rather than looking at how to close the loop on these systems and recognize that everything we create, we're now responsible for.
Yeah. So how do we move our values into alignment with the way that we behave, in the way that we move into these new places and the way that we produce and create waste? So what do you guys think? Who's got the solution to that? It's easy, right? This is an easy question. And it can just be also experiences that you've had with it that aren't a solution at all, but reflections on those.
Oftentimes, the solutions come from reflection on examples of how we've seen this, experienced this, felt it ourselves. I'm curious to hear from others here on the call. How have you seen, experienced, even contributed to, or been pushed out by gentrification?
I don't know if
I
you're
see
speaking, Julie, but. Yep.
I feel this topic very heavy. Hi, Danielle. It's
Hi,
nice
Sequoia.
it's nice to see you in this context and hear so much more about what you've been doing. I've only seen you and smiled and hugged mostly. I had short conversations, and thank you guys for hosting this. It feels really nourishing to be here and hear these intelligent and thoughtful and very well felt voices come together in these ways. Yeah, I just feel this topic very heavy, and it's hard for me to pin gentrification as a villain, and I see it more as a symptom. And I think that's all I really can process at this moment like that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I kind of had the same sort of feeling of like, if we're in a system, if we're in an ecosystem and every part of the ecosystem like plays some sort of role, you know, even forest fires have a role in the forest. So like gentrification must be doing something, but it might just not be pretty.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's interesting to as the villain, because more and more that I look into these narratives of the villain and the hero, it represents our dual thinking in so many ways, and seeing how the human drama resolves around this conflict and the hero destroying the villain, but then becoming the new villain again. So I think it's interesting to look at it more compassionately and see like, oh, wait a minute, gentrification in and of itself is a child of the system that it's born out of. And if we personify it a bit, you know, it's coming from a pain. And the pain, you spoke into it, Alex, is the pain of not feeling safe, not feeling held, not feeling belonging, you know, and therefore consuming more and more and more and more, you know, but filling the hole. So how can we be compassionate with gentrification and see like, oh, what is it that these greedy investors out there actually long for, you know, and how can we move towards them with a bright, open heart and say like, you know what, I have a really ridiculous proposal for you. How about you gift your land to this fund and you will never make any profit from that? How about that? You know, what would it take for the people who are in these positions to open their hearts to the possibility of that? And how could we meet them with that compassion? And in that self, also speaking to myself of how can I speak to that part within me that wants to have for myself and be compassionate with that self, and say, what would it need for you to soften?
I'd love to hear. Yeah, I agree with you, Jonathan. And like, you know, I've definitely gentrified things, you know, arguably I'm doing it right now by living in Shiripo and paying rent, you know. So I'd love to hear. I think all of us probably have our own experiences with being gentrifiers or having been gentrified. What has that experience felt like for you? You know, like how have you worked with your own stories around this? And how are you currently? You know, if you're a landowner, how are you thinking about that right now? And there's no judgment and no right or wrong in this space. So feel free to share as openly as you want.
Well, I have a lot of self-judgment. You know, I basically carry a weight of gentrification and buying property in Los Angeles in a neighborhood that was poor and where people are moving in and paying higher rents. And that's really how I survive now, as I'm trying to move into this new dream, new reality, and giving myself time to establish a career in something that feels more aligned. And so it's with me. And then, you know, being here, seeing how in Costa Rica, seeing how white people interact with Ticos a lot of times, and then going to Diamante Luz and appreciating how Ticos and white people are working together and trying to really solve a lot of these huge issues around money and project prioritization, and feeling inspired. But yeah, so I like to see those sorts of conversations, and I like to see the invitations to Tigo specifically to just meet and consider each other and have openness in the conversation. And for me, that's the starting place. And I haven't really done that yet, partially because I'm still I'm figuring out how to feel rooted, how to find some personal stability here. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing vulnerably.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Yeah, I would like to share a part of my journey. I was 18 years with the Tahitian, and I saw in Tahiti a lot of beauty, kind of destroyed by the trauma brought by the French politics, the Chinese commercial like skills, and Japanese and mostly Americans like buying the land and rising the prices. I'm now in Costa Rica for exactly 1 year, and I have no car here and no property, and I repair a lot of roads where I'm actually here in Calle La Ceiba. And for me, this listening and learning before we try to help is very important, because I see people are proud of giving a lot of money to ticos for their work, that they can even buy a car, nice new car, and then being proud of turning ticos that have been quite productive into consumers of the petrol industry. And I question if that is the right way. We have good ideas, but the subconscious has still the hands on the driving wheel. And I'm very happy about this Zoom call to spread more consciousness and to question, what do we need? We have fresh air, we have clean water, we have fruits, and there's so many houses around that need some presence. Do we really need to possess this, or would it not mean that we are possessed then, and that we have this stress about how to fill the tank, or which paint we need to apply to save our structure of the house, whatever? Or can we just live with little and support each other and yeah, listen, learn, and grow together, instead of thinking that we have yeah, eaten our truth, and now we can tell the ticos how to drive a car and things that they haven't needed so long before. So in Tahiti, every time I went there, I went with huge airplanes, and every time it was more gray, less color, more McDonald's, more processed food, and less connection with Mother Nature. And I'm very happy that I see nature in the focus of this country as one important value that we need to preserve. Thank you for being here.
Hey, I want to share a little bit of, well, yeah, I really feel for this subject too, of course, of the challenges. And yeah, how I've seen it sometimes despair of how we are not able to feel entitled to land. That it's just harder and harder each generation that comes, and what's going to be of my children if we I won't be able to feel entitled to a land, if that is what it takes, or that is the program that what we carry, I believe. So how it is important to be rooted or belong to a land. And I'm just very hopeful for the possibility of models that could be coming forward with so many good ideas coming forward, and I'm really hoping that I'll be able to also help build that. But then, like in the very near term, I'm thinking what triggers in my mind is how to bring ethics to the real estate sector. Like, it's just very, very difficult to stop that. It just comes at full speed, and how we can just get in and try to make it better, how to bring ethics, how to make it like the real estate will actually contribute to the land and the people around them. Because I mean, it's just so easy from people all over the world just have big big pockets and grab what they want. And yeah, just kind of my concerns, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to help in that too in some way, but I still don't know how.
Thank you, Randall. I wanted to thank you. I want to really thank you, Sequoia, for naming. There really isn't a villain. We're all playing all three, where each one of us is the villain, is the hero, is the victim. And the symptoms are what we are speaking of right now, such as this. And ultimately, how we see ourselves as belonging to the solution and being a part of that, and how each of us, in every choice that we're making in our daily lives, we can stop to see which role are we playing in that triangle.
Yeah, I think the act of like our generation's role might be like bringing consciousness to the role that we're playing. And as we start to question these and take small steps forward, like, you know, we're on nature's time here. We're not going to fix everything before we die. Like, we just take our steps and really embody our values and see where we're not, and think about that and question that and try and do just a bit better. And then we set the path for others to keep going, you know. And I think there's a deep work of like gentleness with ourselves, because it's like, oh, I'm not doing well enough, I'm part of the problem, like all of this. It's like we're all really trying, and we're part of something bigger than ourselves that's really hard to escape. So don't stop trying, but also recognize like these little steps that we each take are part of this greater change that takes longer than just us, you know.
Yeah, I think there's something in there to be said about celebrating our recognition of that villain inside of us, recognizing that, hey, this is here, yay, we can see it now. What are we gonna do about it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did anyone else have any reflections or questions that they wanted to share before we wrap up pretty soon? Hello. Jeremiah.
Blender.
Oh.
This is. Oops, someone else speaking.
Nope, you're good.
Okay. This is Angelina, as well, part of the Gennety community, and it's just really cool to come back from my travels too, which were so inspired and fueled by just the strength that's in this community, and it's really cool to come in to see this, to join this call. Thank you so much. I suppose I could show my face. Let's see. I'm not sure how to do that. I don't use Zoom so much. But yeah, I mean, I'm just so thrilled to be listening in, and yeah, I've been born into like this. My family, we've been stewarding land for a while as well, and just actually in a tour business. So there's just so many parts to consider, to like, let's say, come out of this idea of tourism anyway, right? And no one's really a tourist here, and so I would be really thrilled to have more conversations of specific topics. Of course, the what's the word you mentioned? It's a new word for me. The one that you talked about today is just really auspicious and perfect. As I was just talking to a neighbor who's experiencing the exact same thing right now, of where the rent is going up, and then a local Atika is feeling that she has to move out, and how important these conversations are to bring them to the locals, to where we can yeah, express where we're coming from. I mean, a lot of them haven't had the experience, as we know, of the chaos outside of this beauty here, this haven. And I'm, as arriving back into the community, I'm feeling just quite a strong call to come back and to participate into these calls, and as well the community committee here that's in Las Tumbas, and start visiting more DBC. As I mean, there's just I've been receiving for quite some time through the plant medicine now, and different people coming in to express this vision that they of this land, that they arrive here and realize it's a true place. Well, this place being such a blueprint from my understanding, and that proving that being magnified and expressing so true every day. And so with that, I'm really happy that you are all here, and to share with that. Yeah, I'm of the Chapman family and a youngest of the kids, and we steward the Diamante land that's around the waterfall cave of Diamante. And with that, of course, she's been speaking much information as well. The water and the canyon in this region. And so I would be thrilled to open up that conversation, as well as I have a clear understanding now that this is as well a key for us. Like, we have so much resources here. So I'll leave it at that for now. Just a little introduction to where I'm coming from and how thrilled I am. So thank you for listening, and it's been a thrill to feel your devotion and quest to unravel and harmonize and live synergy and symbiosis here. So here, just hello and thank you so much.
Thank you, Angie, so much. I'm really grateful that you're joining the conversation, and I look forward to having more of this conversation. And I want to come to that optimism again. I believe deeply that no one is a tourist. We're all contributors. We're all active participants in creation of a newer way, a different way to feel our connection to what this earth has to share with us, and to what the people that arrive in each of these places have to share with each other. And my optimism comes from each of these connections, whether it's a digital nomad or a person on vacation that arrives here. The evidence is overwhelming that the feeling of this place and the message of the land and the waters, and I'm sure it's in other parts of the world as well, getting into the fiber of our beings and carrying that back out into the world is the solution.
Aho. Yeah, and I really liked weaving in, the voice that is always heard but doesn't speak the way that we speak is the land, and always having, I don't even want to say her because I think it's beyond pronouns, but having it present with us, and guiding us in these conversations, in our decisions. And for me, like, the land is not just about how I interact with the land. It's like every decision I make in life, I can feel this like pulse of this like universal whatever. And when I just go with that, things seem to go really well. So yeah, I think this is a deep topic. I think letting ourselves feel the edges of our own feelings of like shame, guilt, whatever comes up around gentrification, because then we actually get to process it, and I feel, even listening to this, that, like in Rwanda, after the genocide, they have like a national grieving day, which is kind of weird because it's the only day you're allowed to grieve that, but there's almost like a collective grieving process that's needed around some of these topics, because it's like, we don't actually have a solution. Let's just feel the discomfort of the fact that we don't know what to do, and I think that actually could be the thing that moves us out of these cycles. But yeah, and I'll let Jonathan say his closing words as well. and then we'll wrap up. And thank you guys so much for being here and being with us. Thank you, Danielle. That was amazing to hear your experience and your perspective, and everyone else for being vulnerable to dive into their own experiences. It's a real gift to have these conversations.
Yeah, I was disconnected for a few moments. My internet dropped, also part of being in Costa Rica, as many of you probably have experienced. And I don't really have a lot more to say. I just feel that something is moving within my heart, and that is very beautiful to feel that aliveness and to feel the heaviness, but as well also the lightness and the joy of like, oh, I'm not in it alone. There are people out there who care, who are really in it with me, and we're in it together, and that really gives me a lot of hope and a lot of gratitude. So I take that with me, and I feel that we're starting to weave something together as these community weavers are coming together more and more and asking deeper questions that actually shift us into something new. And I feel how multidimensional this process is. On a very personal level, I feel all of the things happening within me, and then on a local up to a global level, it's all present in the fractals that we're moving through. And so if we resolve it on a personal level, it also ripples out on the local level. If we resolve something on a local level, we can resolve it on a global level and actually come together in new ways. And so that feels very promising for me. It's not so much about the goal of where we'll finally arrive, but really also enjoying this process and celebrating. Celebrating is such a beautiful aspect of that. Celebrating the grief, celebrating the gratitude, and coming together in this spirit of celebration, and coming together in this celebration of unveiling the things that have been hidden in the individual and collective shadows for us. So yeah, thank you for being in this inquiry together.
And we'll be doing, this is a monthly occurrence, so we'll be doing another one next month. If you guys have any people that you suggest that you think would be great guests, or if there's topics that you want to explore, feel free to write in the chat or share with us later. And we're also offering for anyone that wants to just, whether you have a community that you're building and you want like another set of eyes and ears on it, or it's more of this like personal, like, okay, I feel stuck in some of these narratives and I need to interrupt those to be able to be better in community. We're offering them 30-minute calls for anyone who comes to these calls to kind of explore those topics together. And Jonathan will send more information about that out after. And if you're not on if you didn't register for this and just joined in and you want more information, just share your email in the chat before we close, and we'll grab all that. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Danielle. Is there anything you wanted to say before we close? Or?
I feel like most of the people who are on this call are here in our Valley area, in our community. And whether you are or not, Angie mentioned something really important, which is connecting with the local municipality, the actual associations and boards that are in your community. It's a slow process. They don't meet really frequently, but when they do, it's really important to engage, to hear what your community is talking about. So I just want to really encourage participation in neighborhood associations and building relationships with those folks, because we do this together.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being with us.
All right, everyone. See you next time.
Have a wonderful rest of your day. See you soon.
Okay. Thank you for hosting this great call, you guys. Can I say something real quick? Sorry, before everyone jumps off. Just grateful that you guys are coming together to meet up and discuss these topics. We are working on being this like mycelium network between all of these magical projects that are around the world, using technology, which is my background personally, and kind of a startup mentality of inventorying and providing the space for everyone to connect. I added some notes in the Rebuild WhatsApp group, and I shared a link to a Discord that we started that shares a bunch of projects around the world, but also these organizations and groups, communities of people talking about neighborhoods. I added some of the topics that we discussed in that Discord group. I would love to follow up with anyone that's interested in continuing this conversation, either in the WhatsApp or in the Discord. And Danny, yeah, I'd love to chat if you have a little bit of time today or tomorrow, whenever feels good for you. I don't know, I can add the, is everyone in the rebuild chat? Is that where everyone came into this from?
We came in from all over the place. I think I'm in the Discord that you're speaking of. I'm going to pop over there and take a look after this call.
Okay, yeah, Regen Catalyzer, I think it's called, a regenerative community movement. I'll drop a link in here real quick.
And
great, thank you.
Yeah, in case anyone's not in there, I'd love to pick your brains, get your feedback, and really hear what your favorite projects are out there, because it's really helping us condense a list of, like, right, IC.org has hundreds and thousands that are not there anymore. It's nice to get a crowdsourced, updated list from active humans like you guys, which is beautiful. Thank you for coming together.
Yeah, and Oscar, if you drop your number in the chat, we'll add you to the Telegram channel we have going for this group. And I would love to, I was just thinking when I was seeing you, would love to have some people from Mexico speaking at this as well. So let's talk.
Okay, yeah, happy to be here. I just caught the end of it. I was here for like the last 30 minutes, but grateful to be here and to continue with you guys.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you soon.
Ciao.
Ciao. All right, I'm going to end the meeting, but that was really fun. I collected the emails, so I'll add them to, I'll send them to you to add to the list of things.
Yeah, that's great.
All right.
Should we, before I send out that email, find a date for January so we can announce that already?
Yes.
There's still 2 people here. Flies on the wall, ears on the wall, but
so we did it, today's Tuesday, so do we want to do it the first Tuesday of January, whenever that is? Or that might be, I think that's January 2nd. That might not be this time.
Would be the 3rd, January 3rd. I'll be in Guatemala, but hopefully find internet connection there. So
maybe we do the 10th, because I feel like the 3rd, a lot of people are still on vacation.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. And yeah, I was thinking, Oscar, I met up in Tulum, and there's a lot of people doing cool projects up there. It'd be cool to try and get like a Mexican-led project.
Cool. Yeah.
Or, you know, some. I think next time let's have someone who's not in Costa Rica, just to like start expanding.
Cool. Yeah, and then in February we can have Tikan, or we'll find something.
Oh yeah, the Morpho guy.
Date for him.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, cool.
Sweet. Thank you. That was really beautiful.
Glad you're feeling better. I'll talk to you soon. I'm gonna go to a class right now.
Yes. See you soon.
Bye.
Ciao.